Hello my stars and welcome back to my channel. I'm Basil and today I will be reading the final fic of Fruit and Intellect. This fic is called All Might Goes Bananas by Witty Jinx, like always. So here's the summary. Midoriya throws bananas at All Might and no one can stop him. Not that Aizawa is really trying. Alternative title: Aizawa is unable to complete more than one worksheet in a sitting. Aizawa, can I speak to you? All Might said, knocking on the door to his classroom. Aizawa glanced from his stack of worksheets to All Might, who was already barging in. Sure, come in. It's not like I'm busy or anything. Aizawa muttered under his breath, most of the sound being caught by his capture weapon. Do you think Nedzu knows about that kid? All Might said quickly, and Aizawa furrowed his brow. Which kid? You know, All Might said, eyes darting back and forth a little. The kid? All Might, we teach out of school. You're going to have to be a bit more specific. Aizawa said tiredly, and All Might straightened up a little bit. The corkless kid that runs around with no supervision? Oh, Midoriya. He's Nedzu's protege, Aizawa said, waving All Might off a little bit, but All Might's eyes widened almost comically. Protege? Seriously? He's corkless, he declared, and Aizawa narrowed his eyes, already beginning to feel irritated by this whole conversation. What does the kid being corkless have to do with anything? He asked, and All Might looked at him like he was dumb. Well, you know, All Might said simply, gesturing a little with his hands, and Aizawa stared at him for a long moment. No, I don't, so please, enlighten me, he said, and All Might scratched the back of his neck, suddenly looking very awkward. Corkless people have no defenses. They're a bit of a liability when it comes to being around people with quirks. A liability, Aizawa said, raising an eyebrow. Yeah, they have nothing to aid them if they are in danger, and with all the quirks in the world, they have an immediate danger, All Might said, his argument slowly weakening as his voice grew quieter. Disadvantage. Yes, the fact that he's even at the school means he's in danger, but when you're also letting him run around without any sort of protection or chaperone? All Might said, and Aizawa rolled his eyes. He doesn't need a chaperone, Aizawa said as dismissively as he could. Why not? He's corkless? All Might said, and Aizawa sighed, long and loud, while All Might looked at him like he was crazy. He may be corkless, but he can run circles around you mentally. I doubt that. He's a kid. Right, All Might. How much do the estimated cost of repairing after villain attacks rise every year? Aizawa asked. I'm sorry, what? Why would I know that? All Might asked, and Aizawa glanced up at the ceiling, spying the vent in the middle of the classroom before speaking. Midoriya, he called. It rises by about 27.8% every year, Midoriya said from the vent, and All Might jumped halfway out of his skin. When did he? All Might asked, and Aizawa waved him off. Thank you, Midoriya. You're welcome, Aizawa! Regardless, estimated costs, that isn't really a concern for heroes, though. We saved the day. That's the important part, All Might said, and Aizawa's soul shriveled up and died a little. Get out of my classroom, he said simply, and All Might stared at him for a long moment. Excuse me? I'm kicking you out of my classroom, so get out, he said, and All Might slowly shuffled towards the door. You don't want to get on my bad side, Aizawa, All Might said, turning around menacingly. Aizawa approached behind him and smiled a little bit. I don't care, he said, and closed the door quickly. Midoriya swung down from the vent gracefully, landing crouched on the desk, staring at Aizawa for a while, silent. "Thank you," he said quietly, and Aizawa nodded. "No problem, kid." "No, seriously, I appreciate it. Not everyone would stand up for quirkless kids," Midoriya said, and Aizawa shrugged. "Don't start thinking that I like you or anything, okay?" Aizawa asked, and Midoriya beamed. "Absolutely not. I would never," he said, and Aizawa nodded firmly. "Good. I have a question, though, before I go," Midoriya said, and Aizawa glanced at him. "Can I throw something at him?" "Absolutely not. Not even fruit," Aizawa said quickly, sitting back down at his desk heavily, pulling a worksheet off the pile. "Come on, Aizawa! Just one piece of fruit!" Midoriya begged, draping himself over a desk as though he were in physical agony. Aizawa spared him a glance before going back to grading. "You can't throw fruit at the number one hero," Aizawa said, trying to picture the world where he wouldn't have to explain such a thing to him. "I could, though," Midoriya said, and Aizawa rolled his eyes, glancing up at him again. "You shouldn't." "But I could," Midoriya said again, and Aizawa sighed. "Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something," Aizawa said, rubbing a hand over his face. "You're worse than my students." "I'll take that as a compliment," Midoriya said, and Aizawa looked at him with all the disappointment he could possibly fit on his face. "You shouldn't." "But I will anyway," Midoriya said with a grin, beginning to climb back into the vent. "Midoriya?" Aizawa caught his foot just before he disappeared fully. "Yes?" "Seriously, don't throw fruit at All Might. I don't want you getting hurt," Aizawa said, and Midoriya smiled down at him. "Aw, so you do care! Don't worry, Aizawa, I already have plans," Midoriya said, and Aizawa shook his head. "What? I just told you." "I know what you told me, but if the number one hero comes to attack me, you'll protect me, right? Also, I was thinking of using bananas this time around." "Banana? Why a banana? And why do you immediately assume that I'll protect you? I don't like you." "The better question would be, why not a banana? And you wouldn't let poor defenseless me deal with All Might all by myself, would you?" Midoriya asked, now dangling out of the vent head first, beaming down at Aizawa. "Isn't your thing watermelons?" Aizawa asked, and Midoriya sighed, propping his elbows up on the ceiling and placing his head on his palms. "Aizawa, watermelons are so last week. Bananas are in, and All Might's hair is the same color," he said, matter-of-factly, like it was the only reasonable option. "I don't think I'll ever understand you," Aizawa said, shaking his head, and Midoriya slid into the vent a bit. "It's a good thing you don't have to then," he said lastly, moving up and into the vent before skirtling away. Aizawa sighed and glanced at the worksheets that were still on his desk before deciding that he was going to move to the teacher's lounge instead. "Having fun being Midoriya's favorite?" Midnight asked, knocking on his desk lightly. "Can I grade in peace for 2 minutes?" he asked to the ceiling. "No, apparently not," Midnight said simply, smiling in a way that she did. Aizawa scowled. "I'm not his favorite," Aizawa said, and Midnight cackled, throwing her head back. "Are you kidding me? All the kid does is gush about you and bully All Might." "Wait, you've seen him bully All Might?" Aizawa asked, and Midnight nodded. "Oh yeah, he's been bullying All Might since his first. Honestly, it's one of the funniest things I've ever seen in years," she explained, and Aizawa placed his head in his hands. He can't just bully the number one hero, he said, and Midnight scoffed. He can and he will. And once you see him do it, you'll change your mind too. Just leave me in place, woman. I want to grade. Aizawa said, and Midnight rolled her eyes. Whatever, she said, ruffling his hair as she passed, and Aizawa glared half-heartedly as she blew him a kiss over her shoulder. He sighed, glancing over the worksheet, quickly marking the answers that were wrong and writing the grade at the top. He reached to grab the next one, and then Nedzu stepped into the lounge. Aizawa, a word in my office? Nedzu said, tilting ahead at his office, and Aizawa sighed, following him in. If it's about Midoriya, I had nothing to do with it, he said, and Nedzu smiled, but shook his head. No, well, yes, but no. He won't listen to me, and I was hoping that you'd be able to convince him to stop bullying All Might, Nedzu said, and Aizawa stared at Nedzu for a long moment. You're not serious, right? He asked, and Nedzu peered at him, his paws folded in front of him on his desk. I am serious. Midoriya is never going to listen to me, Aizawa said, and Nedzu smiled. He listens to you more than he listens to me. I think he likes you, he said, and Aizawa shook his head. No, there's no way that Midoriya likes me, Aizawa said, and Nedzu shrugged. Give it a shot, and let me know how successful you are, he said. And with that, the principal turned back to his work, and Aizawa took it as his cue to leave, heading back to the teacher's lounge, desperate to finally grade more than one worksheet. He had just sat down at his desk when there was a light knock on the doorframe. Sensei? Came a voice, and Aizawa turned to see Shinsou at the door. Oh, Shinsou, did I? Aizawa said, glancing at the time. We had training planned, didn't we? He asked, and Shinsou slowly nodded. If you're too busy, we can reschedule. Shinsou started, but Aizawa shook his head, packing up the worksheets quickly. No, I'm fine. Let's head down to the usual gym, he said, and Shinsou nodded. The two walked together all the way down, making ideal small talk, although it was a little bit awkward. Have you seen All Might get hit with a banana yet? Shinsou asked, rather suddenly, and Aizawa shook his head. No, I've heard about it, though. You'd think that he'd have better reflexes, but apparently not. There's these machines that have been getting set up in every doorway, Shinsou said, and Aizawa glanced at him. Machines? Banana machines. I don't know how they know who All Might is, but it never hits other students or teachers, just All Might. Aizawa held the door open for Shinsou, and they went into the gym together. What are we going to be working on today? Shinsou asked, and Aizawa smiled a little. Today, I was thinking that we might work a little bit more on capture weapon skills. Aizawa was interrupted by something falling over his head. It seemed to be a watermelon rind. Aizawa slowly pulled it off his head, and Shinsou was staring in shock at the vent that just so happened to be right over Aizawa's head. What the? Who? What? Shinsou said. It's fine. It's not a threat, he said simply, exasperatedly. Who was that? Shinsou asked, and Aizawa sighed. Midoriya, Nedzu's student. I didn't know Principal Nedzu took in students, Shinsou said, and Aizawa shrugged, lifting the watermelon up off his head. He didn't used to. Midoriya is Midoriya. Ah, and the watermelon? Shinsou asked. Aizawa took a breath in to explain, before promptly deciding against it. That would take far too long to explain. Midoriya likes fruit. He likes fruit to eat? No, he just likes fruit to build with and to pull pranks on people, Aizawa explained, and Shinsou slowly nodded. Okay. He's the one that's been throwing all the bananas at All Might, Aizawa said, and Shinsou's eyes practically lit up. That's him? He asked, and Aizawa nodded. Yeah. Can you ask him how he made sure that the bananas would hit All Might? Shinsou asked, and Aizawa stared at Shinsou for a long moment. Fine, but only after we practice, Aizawa said. Deal. After practice, Aizawa retreated back to his office, waiting for a long moment before staring up at the vent. Midoriya? Aizawa asked the vent, feeling a little silly doing it, but knowing that it was the best way to contact Midoriya. Yeah? Midoriya called back, sounding a little bit far away and echoey. I have to ask you a question, he said. Alright, give me a second. I'll be there soon, Midoriya said, and there was the sound of rapid movement through the vent. And then there was Midoriya, somehow suspended over Aizawa's head. One of my students had a question, Aizawa said, and Midoriya smiled. Shoot! How did you get the bananas to fire only at All Might? He asked, and Midoriya's eyes brightened. Facial recognition software, he said excitedly, and Aizawa slowly nodded, before sighing and rubbing the back of his neck. Midoriya, as funny as it is that you keep throwing fruit at All Might. Ha! I knew you thought I was funny! You can't just bully the number one hero, Aizawa said tiredly, and Midoriya peered at him for a long moment. Why not? Excellent question. I'll have to tell Nedzu that I tried, but I could not convince you. Anyway, carry on, Aizawa said quickly. I knew you would be my favorite teacher, Aizawa, he said, and Aizawa waved him off a little bit. Just keep me out of your pranks, okay? He called back, only to see that Midoriya was gone, completely in the vent. You hear me, kid? No response. Either Midoriya didn't hear him, or heard him, but wasn't planning on leaving him out of the pranks. Both terrifying options. Aizawa sighed, and began the long walk to Nedzu's office to let him know that he failed. The cafeteria was bustling with movement, various students and teachers taking their lunch break online to get food. Aizawa joining them quickly. He had just sat down with his food when Paraloader practically threw himself in the seat across from him. At this rate, I might as well turn in my hero license, Paraloader said, plopping down next to Aizawa heavily. Excuse me? You need to tell your kid that not every idea is a good idea, he said, and Aizawa blinked. My kid? Midoriya! That kid! I swear, he'll only listen to you. I've already had to stop him from hurtling down the mountain with the watermelon safety gear twice today, Paraloader said, hitting his hand on the table. Why does everyone assume that he'll listen to me? And anyway, Hatsume is your problem, not mine. So, Midoriya is a bad influence. Hatsume enables him. Are you two arguing about your kids? They're not our kids, the two said in unison, before peering at each other for a long moment. Midnight stirred her coffee a little, nodding slowly. Right, anyway, I'm going to go, she said, and Aizawa waved her off a little bit as Paraloader turned back to him. Aizawa, they've made an auto banana launcher, Powerloader said quickly, and Aizawa tilted his head. What for? Specifically to fire bananas at All Might. He paused for a second and lowered his voice, leaning in towards Aizawa. They stole the facial recognition software from the gate, reinstalled it, and are now using it to set the banana launchers all around the school, just to hit All Might. He explained. A little huff of laughter escaped Aizawa. Powerloader shot him a dark look. I'm sorry, but you have to admit, 2 teenagers going out of their way to bully the number 1 hero is mildly amusing. Aizawa said, and Powerloader's jaw tightened in a way that it did when he was trying not to laugh. You may be right, but they need to be stopped, he said, and then stood to leave. I'll try my best, but I haven't been successful yet, Aizawa said, and Powerloader nodded. I appreciate the effort. We might need to take drastic measures. Like what? We might need to separate them, keep them busy and away from each other to minimize the damage, he said, and Aizawa shook his head. We can try, but Midoriya is slippery. He knows all the vents in the building like the back of his hand, and Hatsume is no better. I'm sure she has inventions on her at all times, just to make sure that no one interferes, Aizawa said, and Powerloader groaned. You're right. I wish you weren't, but you are. I wish I wasn't either. Anyway, you head out. I think you have a class now. I'm going to keep on trying to grade. Haven't had any luck? None at all, Aizawa said. I would recommend going to Ground Beta. I heard All Might was going there soon, he said, and All Might stared at him. Fair enough. I'll head over, Aizawa said, and Powerloader nodded, before tapping twice on the door frame and heading away to his classroom. Aizawa quickly gathered up all his supplies, everything that he could need, including those damn worksheets, and started walking to Ground Beta. If Powerloader was implying what Aizawa thinks he was implying, then he definitely didn't want to miss it. Aizawa ended up passing All Might along the way, giving him a polite nod but nothing else, desperate to get there quickly and set up. When he finally reached Ground Beta, Aizawa spied the banana launcher at the doorway and grabbed his capture weapon, hopping to the top of the building. It was a waiting game from there. Time seemed to slow down. The door opened. The banana launcher made a soft clicking sound, and a banana was launched. The banana spiraled through the air like a delicate ballerina, spreading its wings for the first time only to hit All Might square in the face. Nothing could have stopped the evil smile that grew on Aizawa's face. Alright, my stars, that is the end of the fic and the series. I really enjoyed it. It was extremely hilarious and everything. It was amazing. Again, credits to the author, Witty Jinx, for creating this and letting me podfic it. I really, really liked it. And I just like how Midoriya's bullying the number 1 hero. And I like how everyone thinks like that Aizawa is Midoriya's favorite, which he is, but I like how Aizawa is like denying it as much as he can. But yeah, that's all I had to say about this fic. And if you guys have any recommendations for any fics you would like me to podfic, you can put them down in the comments. I would love to see them, and my Discord server and socials are in the description down below, so you can go check them out. But that's the end now, so I hope to see you in another one. Bye, my stars!